Path Radio, your number one online Islamic talk station.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You're listening to Middle Path Radio. I'm Kamal Hussein and welcome to Straight Talk. This evening we want to discuss the Paris attack that has dominated the news. There is so much coverage in the media, but what I want to do tonight is to get the Muslim views, because once again the Muslim community is under the spotlight. There is a shock, silence and uncertainty. How should we respond to these unfolding events? Should we apologize, condemn or speak our mind? This is Straight Talk, your opportunity to air your views. So join us, call or text 07477080248, or you can tweet us at #MiddlePathRadio. To discuss this, we have in the studio our regular contributors. I'd like to welcome Brother Khairul Islam, IT consultant, and Abdul Samad, our political activist. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam
wa rahmatullah.
Also, special guest tonight, we have Brother Reza Nadim from Muslim Public Affairs Committee, who will be joining us on the phone. So stay tuned and join us in this important discussion. Let's start with Brother Reza, inshallah. We just...
Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me, brother?
Well, sir, brother, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, inshallah. Basically, I want to start with your, what are your initial thoughts on the Paris attack?
My initial thoughts, brother, is this, and I know people may find this hard to swallow, but it's the reality. It's that it's ISIS. They made it clear themselves why they committed this horrific attack. They said it was to do with airstrikes that France was committing over Syria. And that's why this has happened. And as always, the reason why we have terrorism on this earth is because of political issues. And as always, as we've seen, when it comes to Muslims, the issue comes down to unjust foreign policies. That's why ISIS even exists, and that's why ISIS committed this horrendous attack.
So should the Muslims of France or Europe partly to be blamed? Because this is what we're getting from the media, isn't it?
And it's true, it's been horrific to see, brother. I mean, it's almost as if, you and I can never condemn enough. But the thing is this, I've reached a point, with MPACUK, we used to do that ages ago. I mean, I remember 10 years ago when we started, we used to do a lot of, look, this doesn't represent Islam, and this is bad, this is bad. And we realized, actually, we don't need to do. When someone asks you that question, they're actually questioning your morality. Imagine it's like imagine I asked you, brother, saying that, well, brother, do you think it's a bad thing that children are killed? Mm-hmm. Of course, you'd say, why are you even asking me that question? Obviously it's wrong.
So the question is actually the problem, isn't it?
The question is the problem, but also the questioners. You've got to realize, brother, that remember, when there's a crisis, people are looking for answers. They're looking for solutions to the problem. And so what happens is they want to understand what is happening around them. And what happens is, when there's a crisis like the Paris attacks or Charlie Hebdo or Woolwich or anything like that, the Islamophobes, they kick into action. And they have a very clear line, a very clear story. And the story is this. They say this is because of Islam. And what happens is that some Muslim organizations, they fall into the trap and they start saying, oh, no, Islam is peace, Islam is peace. And brother, that's the worst thing you can do, because imagine someone is calling you fat, ugly and stupid, and you respond by saying, hey, I'm not ugly. Well, you're still fat and stupid. And that's what Muslims are doing. When they say Islam is peace, that doesn't deal with the attack on you. What the Islamophobes are saying is that your religion is a perverted, barbaric religion, and that's why these attacks happen. And what we have to say is no, it's nothing to do with Islam, it's everything to do with your unjust policies and your illegal wars. And when we take that style of responding and that confidence in our answers, you will notice that other people will respect us more. All this apologizing stuff, it will never please the Islamophobes, and really it makes you have less respect for yourself, because what kind of other human being on this planet has to apologize as much as Muslims?
So do you think, a lot of the Muslim organizations, they talk about reformation, that Islam needs to be reformed. How do you view that?
The thing is this, look, brother, don't get me wrong. We need to understand Islam better in today's modern society. But I don't like that word reform the way these people use it. Some of these organizations and people like Majid Nawaz and Quilliam, because when they mean reform, they mean we don't like the fact that Muslims care about the Ummah so much, and they have this concept of fighting against injustice. And so when they say reform, they mean take out those bits of Islam. And that I'm not for. What I believe in is a revival of Islam and our Islamic traditions. Because the thing is this, our faith is a beautiful one. And really, see, there's two bits to it though, brother. One is you got the Islamophobes, they want you to reform. Because, you know, they don't want Muslims to fight back. But the reality is, as Muslim community, brother, we need a change. If you look at our mindset, the way we're so oppressed, the way we're attacked in the media in this country, the way, you know, we end up having to apologize and condemn, no human being has to go through that. And Islam doesn't say you should be oppressed. Islam says fight against oppression, stop injustice. But the Islam that we follow, it's become quite apathetic.
Brother Nadim, sorry, I've got a text. Maybe you can. What I'll do, I've got a lot of texts coming in, and I'll just try and get those texts in so you can maybe answer them, inshallah. So the first text here is: why are the refugees being blamed for the attack when there's no evidence that refugees were involved?
The reason why they're blaming the refugees is because, brother, it's half these politicians and all these commentators, they've got racist opinions. That's what it is. They have racist tendencies, and they don't. Like, for example, you had Nigel Farage of the UKIP party saying that we will only accept Christian refugees. You had others saying, why don't Muslims go to the Muslim countries? And that really kind of racist language. So the reason why they're attacking the refugees off the back of the Paris stuff is because they want an excuse. They want to be able to justify why they're so racist towards Muslims and why they don't want Muslims in. And that's why when anyone attacks refugees off the back of it, Muslims, we need to come on them like a ton of bricks and say, how dare you blame the people who are fleeing the conditions created by your policies? They wouldn't be refugees if it weren't for you in the first place.
I think the fact is that, the attack that took place, none of the attackers were actually refugees. They are homegrown. And this is from the media.
But even if they were, brother, look, of the 8 attackers, none were refugees. But imagine they were all refugees. It doesn't matter, because that does not mean that because of 8 people you punish millions of Muslims who are fleeing a terror. That is wrong, and that is inhumane. And then for Britain, France and America to dare lecture Muslims about their values after they want to close their borders to refugees is the height of hypocrisy.
I've got more text coming in. I'll read another one for you. To Brother Reza, what does he think the Muslim community should do? What does he mean by we need change?
I'll tell you what I mean by that. There's a couple of things, brother. It's when I say we need change, I mean I get this a lot, yeah. But the work that I do in MPACUK, I get a lot of Muslims saying, "Well done, brother. You're doing a good job. MashaAllah, keep it up." And the thing is, I don't like that, because what I'm doing is what every Muslim should be doing. Absolutely. So when they attack our prophet, when they attack our religion, when they try to stop Muslims coming into this country, the refugees, then it isn't the job of some Muslims to defend our faith. It's the job of all Muslims. But when I say we need change as a community, part of it is that in our understanding of Islam, for some reason we have separated defending our religion from the main thing. So often you get brothers saying, "Oh, brother, you went to the demo, but you didn't even pray. You don't even do the basics." Now, my question is, what do you mean by the basics? Because if you look at what the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, and what God says himself in the Quran, that stopping injustice is one of the greatest things a Muslims can do. So isn't that part of our basics? So I think in that sense, we need to change. And the other part is, brother, we need to be much more organized. It's time and time again, we see these attacks on Muslims, physical attacks in the media, all these things. And as a community, we're just not well equipped enough. We don't fund this work. We don't join in this work. And you know what? That's why things are so bad, because we don't fight back in an organized way.
Absolutely. What I can do is, brothers in the studio, you can come in if you've got any questions that maybe you want to ask Brother Reza, then you can do that, please. So do interrupt me. I don't have a problem with that, inshallah. I think the main question that everyone is asking is how do we feel about the media coverage? Because at this moment we can't see anything which is positive from the media.
The thing is this, brother, the media coverage from the mainstream media has been absolutely pathetic. But the thing is, it's to be expected. So, for example, yesterday on Question Time, we had the person who's in charge of the Evening Standard and the Independent, Lebedev, and he's a Russian millionaire, I believe. And he was saying that, Muslims need to do more. Why aren't more Muslims marching against it now? That's the guy who's in charge of those newspapers. Yeah. So obviously he's gonna make sure that line comes out in his newspapers. So you're right, it's been quite a pathetic Islamophobic coverage actually in the story. But the reality is, and this is going to be harsh on Muslims, we allowed it. What are we doing against that? What are we doing to tackle that? So if when a newspaper talks about Muslims in a racist way or Islamophobic way, what are we doing to tackle what they're saying? And if we don't, then really don't we deserve what we get? Because it's what do you expect from an Islamophobe? Of course he's going to hate on you. What you got to do though is fight back in an organized way.
Okay, I think Brother Khairul wants to come in.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Reza. I have one question. Why do you think France was a target in this incident, and especially some of the people that did the attack, they live in France in the ghettos right here and so on. What's your opinion about this?
So about why the attack happened?
Why the attack happened? Why were these people? They're mainly people who grow up in France, isn't it? Yeah, those that did the attack. From the ghettos.
Yeah, the thing is, brother, there's been a lot of research, academic research into this already about what makes people into extremists or terrorists, etc. And a big part of it is they don't feel part of the society they live in. So if you look at the way Muslims in France have been treated for decades, they have been treated worse than second-class citizens would. They're denied access to certain jobs. They're constantly being attacked in the media. I mean, earlier this year, just to explain, brother, just how bad it is, Muslim girls, hundreds of Muslim girls, were being sent back home from school because their long black skirts were being considered to be too long. Understand that the long black skirt was considered to be too long, and what they're saying is Muslims are doing it because of their religious stuff, women are modesty and all that, and that's why they're wearing these long skirts. So the thing is, Muslims for decades have been attacked in France. They're not treated as equal citizens. So I'm not surprised at all that some French Muslims there thought, you know what, I have nothing to do with this country. They're bombing my people, and that's it. I'm going to take some action. That doesn't justify what they're doing, but it does explain the mindset of those murderers. And the thing is, ISIS themselves made it clear this was a response because of Syrian airstrikes. So, and that's what I find fascinating in the discussion, brother. You often get a lot of our politicians saying, "Oh my God, why did this happen? We don't know. Why did these people commit this horrific attack?" Well, actually, they told us. Yeah. They've told us time and time again. It's because you keep bombing their countries. Simple as.
So it's not because of the evil ideology that they talk about.
The only evil ideology I've seen is the one where Tony Blair and George Bush said that God spoke to them and said we need to bomb Iraq. The only evil ideology I've seen is that when they put sanctions on Iraq and 500,000 children died from not having food. That's the only evil ideology I've seen. Muslims aren't the people that support or promote an evil ideology. If anything, we're the victims of their evil ideology.
Absolutely. There's been talk in France that they want to close mosques who give khutbah in Arabic, and if they don't give khutbah in French, then they will close these mosques down. How do you feel about that?
What I feel about that is we've often seen Christian extremists, Muslims. There's a place I'd recommend your listeners Google the name of this place. It's called Plovdiv, Plovdiv. A place There's a place in Bulgaria, and it was a place where the Muslims used to be, and it was known as the Granada of the East. There's a fantastic article by Abdul Hakim Murad on his website that documents what happened to the Muslims there. And what happened is that when the Russian communists came and started to oppress the Muslims and took over and tried to defeat the Ottoman Caliphate, what they did was that they told the Muslims, you can't have Arab names, you can't do this, you can't talk in Arabic, you can't talk in Turkish, you have to talk in our language. And really, this is time and time again we've seen from Christian supremacists, this same mentality from white supremacists that says, you can't practice your religion, you can't be who you are. So for me, what I say is this to the French Muslims, but to the Muslims in Europe as well, that if you don't like what you're hearing, if you don't like the fact that they treat you like second-class citizens, then guess what, brother, we need to organize. What we can't do, and we do too much of this, is that we complain that the whole world is bad and it's against us. Well, tough luck. Guess what? Islamophobes, their job is to hate you. So what are you going to do about it? If you're not going to do anything, then you know what? Then you deserve what you're getting. But if you start doing something, guess what? Allah says, no good deed goes to waste. And also, you're fighting for the truth. So how can you lose? We need to change our mindset.
Yeah. I have another text, and the text says, I honestly fear the repercussions on the Muslims in Europe. What do you think is the future of the Ummah here?
What I'd say is this: if Muslims want to have some idea of what the future could look like, there's a book by a fantastic writer called Matthew Carr, C-A-R-R. He wrote a book called Blood and Faith, and it tells you about what happened to the Muslims in Spain when, in Cordoba and Granada, when the Christian extremists kicked them out. And the thing is, that book explains the kind of future Muslims can look forward to if we don't do anything to tackle the hate we face. And it talks about how Muslims are treated as second-class citizens. Everything about their faith was demonized, attacked. And guess what? We're going through similar things right now. All the time you see politicians and media spokespeople and different organizations talking at Muslims, talking about Muslims, but never talking with us. They're always talking about how we need to sort ourselves out, how we're bad, how we're barbaric. And that kind of language, you see what it does is this. You've got to get into the mind of the average Joe. Imagine you're an average non-Muslim person in this country. And every day, all you see is Muslims are the problem, is terrorism is coming from Islam, this, that, and the other. Eventually, you'll say, man, these Muslims, why don't they get themselves in order? I had enough of them. And some people will say, God, these Muslims are such a threat. I need to do something about it. And that's when it spills over into more violence against us. But the other bit, and this is what's even scarier than the physical violence, is that when Muslims are dehumanized in this country, it allows the government to have legislation, laws that are so anti-Muslim that the world says nothing against, because it says, well, maybe we need to do this to protect ourselves from the evil Muslim. So that's what we can. But that's what we can look forward to. But if we get organized and we take a much more organized approach, and when I say organized, brother, I don't mean everyone get inside one massive office. What I mean is with your family and friends, with anyone that you know locally, in your local mosque, with different organizations, get involved with people like MPACUK. Then guess what? Inch by inch, we win, inshallah.
Okay, I have a brother, Abdul Samad, who wants to come in. So, Abdul Samad?
Yes, assalamu alaikum, brother. We find that we're actually up against a state here, a state apparatus and a massive media machine. A lot of the Muslims in the community they feel defeated already, in the sense that what can we actually achieve? Even if we did sort of like get together and try to sort of like argue our way again, in this situation. So. I don't know. I mean, how do you see the way out? I mean, today, for example, in the masjid, for example, there was the khutbah was actually on this topic, i.e. Paris, and the usual line of, Islam forbids, and therefore we condemn this terrorism and so on and so forth, yeah? But we find that the last time they actually spoke about anything political was also when 7/7 maybe, or 9/11, and apart from that, it's always been about making wudu and raising your children, with ikhlaq and all the rest of it. You see, so I mean, how do you feel about that, and how do we sort of like work together, and what exactly do we work towards?
Well, there's two things. There's a fascinating thing that you mentioned about, a lot of Muslims, they feel defeated or against the state. Well, you know what? Those are the cards that Allah's dealt you. What are we going to do about it? And I think part of it is changing our mentality, brother. Too many Muslims, we accept things are really bad. And what we do is, a lot of Muslims I know, they say, things are really bad, and these people, they really hate us, and that's that. We can't do anything about it. And that is such a disempowering message, because it says to the Muslims that we can never do anything to change our condition. But really what we need to do is saying, no, guys, we can do something, and we need to take small steps, small organized steps, to take them on. The thing is, a lot of Muslims, they talk about, oh man, how are we going to win against a state that hates you? Well, the reality is, bro, what steps have you taken? Because if you've not taken any steps, how will you know what works or doesn't work? You know, we actually have to try to do something, and then we can say, that works. This is how we're going to defend ourselves. Muslims don't take the steps. Now, also, with regards to the mosques, you're right, a lot of mosques, some of them are absolutely pathetic and cowardly in how they, they only talk about these issues when there's pressure from the media. But, if a brother wants to organize an event on Palestine, they won't allow it because it's too political. But if a local councillor wants to come in and say vote for Labour, they'll let him in. And it is really bad. It's really pathetic. But here's the thing. If you don't like the way your mosque is run, then guess what? We need to get more involved. We need to hold those people to account and say, what are they doing? And why are they not allowing young Muslims to get in, get organized, and get educated?
But Brother Reza, but can you really blame the mosques? Because obviously, the consequences is that, it can be closed down, or there's a lot of things, because obviously they've providing prayer facilities, and you can understand that some of our mosques is led by our uncles who are who don't really have a political understanding, or they don't understand the reality how things work, but they're afraid.
But then, brother, what do we do then? Do we wait for them to die and then organize the mosque? That's not the solution, is it?
Absolutely not. Yeah.
But the thing is, but your point, I appreciate your point about their hands are tied because things are bad. But guess what, brother? This is harsh. But we allowed things to get bad. For example, look right now. One of the reasons why mosques are so afraid is because the person who's in charge of the Charities Commission is a guy called William Shawcross. Now, that man is a hardcore Islamophobe. He's been on record saying that Guantanamo Bay is not so bad. He's put a lot of energy into going after Muslim charities, and he was part of the Henry Jackson Society that Douglas Murray belongs to. That hard, well-known Islamophobe. Now, here's the thing. That guy's in charge. Now, what do? Do we say, oh, man, things are really bad, if only things weren't so bad? Or do we say, we don't like the fact this guy's in charge, we don't like what he's doing to Muslims, and we're going to do something about it? If we don't do something about it, guess what? William Shawcross will continue on his witch hunt against Muslims, and our charities, even like good charities like Interpol and others, they will pay the price.
Yeah, well, I've got another text for you. I promise this will be the last text.
That's fine.
If we continuously use military action against terrorist groups like IS and end up killing innocent people, we then end up creating more terrorist groups. So how can we tackle terrorism? That's one question, and I think they've added another one. Why don't people tell media to stop lying about Islam?
The thing is this. Okay, I'll answer the last one first. When he says that, why don't people tell the media to stop lying? Well, guess what? We're people. And the reality is, we all have to ask ourselves, and your listeners have to ask themselves, when they saw Islamophobic headlines, when they saw Muslims being attacked when they saw journalists saying don't allow refugees in, how many of us picked up the phone to a newspaper, wrote an email to complain, commented on the website to say this is wrong, this is Islamophobic? The thing is, we are people, we have to do this. No one else is going to defend us apart from ourselves. So that's part of the issue, is that what we can't do is complain about the media, but then not do anything to tackle the hate that we face.
I think also basically, a lot of our community, they don't feel confidence in discussing these issues. Maybe like what you said, we do need programs maybe where we teach them that look, no, this is the way you should discuss.
So, brother, I just want to give you a personal example. When I first joined MPAC, my first ever media interview was on Islam Channel. And I did such a bad job, I was 18 at the time, that they actually rang up MPAC and said, we don't ever want him back on again, because I did such a bad job. And the thing is, I could have said, what's the point? I don't know any better. I'm not equipped with the skills. Yeah. But I didn't, alhamdulillah. And the thing is, and I think what Muslims need to do is this. The best way you learn how to fight Islamophobia is by fighting Islamophobia. There's no point in me giving you the theory. What you need to do is you need to go out and do something. And when you do something, that's when you start to realize, here's how you do. Look, man, MPACUK, we weren't born knowing how to take on Douglas Murray and Majid Nawaz and Quilliam. Over the years, we've had to try different things and learn how to get better. So the thing is, for the Muslims, if they feel they don't know what to do, man, Allah tells you, if you've got the will, Allah makes the way. And what we need from more Muslims is to say, I see the problem, I will solve the problem. And when we take that attitude, I promise, I guarantee you, and it's actually not I guarantee, Allah guarantees you, so many doors will open for us.
Inshallah.
Now regarding military action stuff, the brother makes a vital point about military action only leads to more problems, more innocent people dead, and more terrorism. But here's the thing, what we need to do now is this. MPs are going to vote on this issue, on going to Syria, and there's going to be much discussion in the media and with politicians. We need to be making sure we inform that discussion. So if you see radio shows talking about, why we need to bomb Syria, then we need to be calling in. If you see articles about that, you need to be writing about that. If you see a local, we need to be organizing events, raising more awareness, talking to more non-Muslims, talking to Muslims, talking to your local MP, saying that, look, you work for me, MP, don't you dare vote for airstrikes or bombing more Muslims, because if you do, watch, next election, we're going to make sure you're kicked out. And that's the thing, we need to do that kind of stuff, because if we don't, if we're not part of the conversation, other people will direct the conversation.
Jazakallah khair. And on your final message, what is your message to the Muslims who are interacting with non-Muslims? So, for example, people at work, university, what's your message to them?
What I say to them is stay strong. I know it feels like a pressure cooker. I know it's hard to speak truth, and I know it's hard to be a Muslim in today's day and age. But the thing is this, the Prophet peace be upon him said that Islam will be like a hot coal in the final times. And guess what? It feels like we're entering those times. Absolutely. So it's important for us to hold steadfast. And guess what, brothers and sisters, I say to everyone listening, do good work, stand up against injustice, fight oppression, because Allah says that you take one step towards it, He comes running towards you. So brothers and sisters, take that step. We can't lose, we're bound to win.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Reza Nadim, for contributing to our show, and I pray Allah keeps you well, and inshallah, I would love to have you again on our show next time, inshallah.
Again, thank you so much.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you so much.
So, brothers, you are listening to our brother Reza Nadim, who is the spokesperson for MPACUK, which is Muslim Public Affairs Committee UK. Inshallah, our guests in the studio have been very quiet. I think they've been listening to some of the very important.
Well, Brother Raza was making very, very good points. We
Absolutely.
didn't want to, interrupt him when he's making these points. I think it's important to listen to him.
Definitely. So what I have a text. Maybe shall I start with the text? Yeah. Okay. Let's start with the text. It says, UK. Up until now, I have not seen any unequivocal evidence that the perpetrators of the Paris incident. Can Brother Reza explain on what legal basis are they arguing this? I'm afraid Brother Reza is gone, so I think I'll pass that on to our studio panelist.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani wa yafqahu qawli. Let me just say, firstly, that what's happened in France, what's happening in Paris, this is no way, in any way justified. The killing of innocent civilians is not justified in anything, and certainly not in Islam, on any Islamic views. And whether this killing is in Paris or Baghdad or Kabul or Mali, it's not justified. And Islam holds the protection of human life as one of the greatest, highest in value. But what the concern I have is, these Paris attacks, they will be used, in the wrong way. So they'll be used to further the colonization of the Muslim countries, further killing in Syria and Iraq. There was 8 suicide bombers yeah, who killed 130 people in Paris. Straight after that, there's been over 150 bombs launched in Iraq and Syria, which killed more than 700 people. And these are civilians. So we need to condemn both. Any civilians killed is no good.
But then the question is, should the Muslim of France or Muslims living in Europe, should they take some sort of blame because they are aggravating this cause, isn't it? Abdul Samad? You seem a bit...
Yeah, I mean, whether these the incidents that took place in France, I mean, the guys that were the perpetrators, to be quite honest, we don't know much in terms of who they are, who they're affiliated with, how they're connected with ISIS or whatnot. These are just reports that we're getting and we're being told, and that's all we can really say. But what we can say clearly is that they have no link or connection with Muslims that are living in the Western society. They did not in any way claim to even represent the Muslims here in the UK or in France, or in their name. They mentioned that they have done, or ISIS have made a claim that it was done in the name of ISIS. Now, who knows who ISIS is? I mean, who funds ISIS? Who created ISIS? Was it the Muslims that created ISIS?
The atmosphere of hatred.
Let's take this question. Yeah, it's a very, very good question. Are the Muslims in the West, or in these countries, to blame for this action? Do they have blame to this? This is a very emotive question, actually. And if you think about it, what it's doing is it's moving the question away from what the question should really be, and it's taking away from the fact that maybe some of the things that we are doing in these countries have something to partly to play with it. Our foreign policy may have something to do with it. And the way
that's nothing to do with the Muslims.
There's nothing to do with the Muslims.
Foreign policy has nothing to do with the Muslims.
No, but you can't ask that question. That's the thing. That's not even on the table. You can't ask that question. What are we doing in Iraq? What we're doing in Syria? Maybe that's coming home to roost.
I mean, as soon as you asked, you mentioned the issue about foreign policy. I mean, one of the most common response you'll find from the media and the politicians, even, is, well, if you don't like our foreign policy, then just leave. I
think you're referring to LBC.
That's right, LBC. Who was it? Nick Ferrari, was it?
Yeah, Nick Ferrari.
Nick Ferrari, yes. And the Independent, I think, picked up on that, and they done a piece on that. And you can see, I mean, like, there's this supremacist attitude, if you like, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, this is far right, isn't it? This is racism. This is
this is the kind of language that you got. I'm not going to give you your age away, but in the 80s, under NF, National Front, who were the racist organization, and these are kind of the language, the rhetorics that they were using, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, I've got a question here, which is a text. Sorry, again, we're getting a lot of text for some reason. Please ring in. Our number is 074-77080248. We are discussing the Paris attack, or you can tweet us at Middle Path Radio. I'm going to take another text, and one of the brothers can maybe answer that. If we condemn the Paris killers, shouldn't we condemn the millions of Muslims being killed by the West and the USA?
One of the things that Islam makes very clear, as brother, the brother that was on the call,
Brother Reza Nadim,
Brother Reza Nadim, he made clear that Islam condemns all types of innocent killings of civilians, and this is very clear in Islamic text, and I think also Brother Carville mentioned as well. But I mean, the same cannot really be said about the Western nations that are demanding that the Muslims make a condemnation against these attacks. it seems to be very selective. You need to condemn these attacks. But, it's like we have. But the question is, have you condemned the killing of 800 immediately after that you went out there and you killed 800 civilians? Has the French people or the British people or the American people, have they condemned this? Does this equate to terrorism or does it not? If it's not terrorism, can you explain why? Is this, so some killings are terrorism and other killings are foreign policy. You see, so there seems to be this element of hypocrisy, isn't it?
I'm going to read another text because we're receiving a lot of text, and I want to try and go through the text rather than go for our questions. So the text says, "Why are we confirming that the perpetrators of Paris shootings are Muslims when we have in the past witnessed that these can be influenced by government or even implanted by them?" Not sure if you guys want to take that.
Well, I think that's it's a good point. Yeah, I mean, we don't know who. This is what the media is saying.
Yeah.
We take it on.
I mean, some would suggest it's conspiracy, and
we don't know. I mean, we don't do any. They don't do. I mean, even now, 9/11, there hasn't been a proper investigation or inquiry into
independent
this.
inquiry has never been made into these
what
things,
you can say is there is a history of interference through colonization. Colonization never really ended, and you can see how it just changes from one to another. So if you just look at France, last 35 years, the constant interference in Algeria, Mali, in Middle East, all over the place. Even now they're in Mali, isn't it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the War of Independence in Algeria, a million people, according to some counts, were killed. Yeah, because they didn't want France there. Okay. So, and then you had FIS, who literally won elections. And then France went in.
FIS being Algerian political party, yeah?
That's right, Algerian Islamic party in Algeria, who wanted to, decide their own fate for their country. Yeah. So all of these things, I wouldn't be surprised if this is another, a
false flag operation in order to
a way of to make because what they will do is they will utilize this to further, colonize, further, have their own, subjugate in the Muslim world, and another reason to get involved in the Muslim world.
Okay, I'll go through the text again. It says, "How come when Israeli troops kill our brothers and sisters in Gaza, the Western media outlets remained mute?"
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a common practice, if you like, of the Western media. I mean, there's been a lot of people coming on the media talking about this is the biggest attack that has happened on French soil since World War II. But, there was an incident actually, I can't remember exactly what year was that. It's about 1957 or 67 or something like this, where actually 200 Algerian protesters, unarmed protesters, were actually shot down by police. And many of them were strangled, others were taken in, and God knows what happened to them, and there was actually very little, if any, media coverage, and a lot of people don't even know about this. And these were unarmed, Algerian protesters. They're protesting against a lot of the injustice that was taking place, and so on and so forth. So, nobody remembers these people. Nobody condemns what happened there. So you can see, I mean, the Western media, it is very selective, and what you will find is that these are agendas that are driven by the governments and the media.
I would like to there has been a huge coverage of what's going on in France, in Paris, by the media, and it's all creating a certain narrative. Would you believe Radio 4 Radio 4 widely listened news show in the morning, peak hour, traveling. Yesterday, I'm traveling to work and I'm listening to Radio 4. Guess what the narrative was? They're in the suburbs of Paris and they're talking to some of the people there in terms of what they feel and how they feel what's going on. So they had an interview with one woman.
Okay.
Yeah. And this woman, basically, the question was about extremism. What does she feel about extremism? And what she said is, she says, I've seen so much change in the suburbs. I've seen extremism flourish. How did she see extremism?
What's the definition of extremism?
What did she see as extremism flourishing? She said, well, I had this plumber. He used to be really, really nice guy. And then he started growing a beard. Yeah? And then he started stopping looking at me and wouldn't shake my hand. Yeah? And then, the street I was living in, there never used to be any halal butchers. Now I've got 6 halal butchers. Yeah. Now this is, extremely worrying. I'm getting really, really worried. These were the kind of words that she was using. This is Radio 4 I'm talking about.
So her definition of extremism is beard and halal food.
I have no problem with somebody saying that. But when you're Radio 4, when you don't have a counter to that, what are you trying to push? That somebody with a beard, now it's as extremism, now they're going to come along and kill you? Or somebody, if there's butchers, halal butchers?
Ask you, Brother Khairul, so what did the presenter say, or the panelists that were on the show? Did they refute her and say, look, you can't say that's terrorism?
I wish they did. Okay. I can't say that. I was waiting for them to at least give some counter narrative to this. For someone else to come and say, well, that doesn't really mean that they're all terrorists. Yeah. They just gave that view and then they went on to a different news. Think about it. Now, we've got halal butcher. How many halal butchers do we have in East London?
Countless.
And how many bearded people that won't look at women? So they're all terrorists, ready to blow
by
themselves.
the way, just to it's fashion now to grow your beard. So the non-Muslims
so we need to be careful.
Terrorists.
We need to be careful.
Or extremists. Anyway, I've got another text, couple of texts to go through. I've got this text here. It says, "Do the panelists think that the West wishes to create a pretext to further the imperialistic objective in Syria?"
I fear that's the case. I fear that's exactly what's happening, because if you look at what's happening in Iraq and Syria, what you can see is really Europe had a very, very minimal role to play. You had America in there, and then suddenly Russia came in on the side of Assad. So America on one side and Russia on the other side, and there's not really any room for Europe. No play at all. So that's why, sometimes you can look at some of these conspiracy theories and you think, possibly not. Yeah. Now there is a pretext for Europe to get involved in this case. And believe me, this is going on. I mean, and right now there's a talk of Parliament signing off.
I mean, they didn't waste much time, did they? Immediately, you can say almost immediately after the incident, they were, carrying out the bombing raids. France, and last night I was watching BBC, and they were really drumming up the beats, for war. They're gearing up. They're talking about boots on the ground and things like this, So you can see. I mean, this is definitely going to happen. Should we not?
That's a text I'm going to read. Should we not articulate our deen to the non-Muslim population?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be quite honest, to be fair, right, I have also come across a lot of non-Muslims that have actually spoken a lot of sense. So I know we sometimes do go on about the media and the establishment sometimes, and sort of like, make out as though the whole society is like this. It's not like this, actually. There's a lot of sensible people out there. A lot of people that do understand, and they do see the hypocrisy and the duplicity and the agenda that the government is driving. And there are genuinely good people out there.
Would it be right to say, and I think Brother Reza also mentioned, is that, look, maybe we need to have a plan for the non-Muslims living in this country.
We need to
give them the Islamic perspective in terms of these events and what it means. Because obviously, like you said, in Twitter you find, or in the social media, the non-Muslims are defending, the Muslims in terms, when they are labeled as extremists.
You know what? I mean, we need to take the challenge on. I mean, for us, everything is a test. This is a test Allah has placed on us. Yeah, the idea of Khilafah, the idea of Islamic rules and so on has been hijacked. Yeah, they're using this kind of things to actually say any Islamic idea, these kind of ideas, is wrong, and we should all leave those. And people like Quilliam will push that line. Yeah, and
Quilliam led by Majid Nawaz.
Yeah, so they will push that line. So we need to. Will not let them hijack these kind of events. We need to say this is what Islam is. This is where it's been. It's last. I mean, we've got history, whole history, 1400 years of history, and these kind of things did not happen. And we had the Khilafah where we looked after people. So we need to come out with this and not allow these kind of concepts to be hijacked and to be afraid of that, because this is what we live for. We live for Islam. We live for Allah Ta'ala, inshallah. And it's very important that we deliver courage. We create courage amongst ourselves. Allah is with us. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to read more text here. We've been bombarded with text. This one says, "Why do the Western ruler people seem baffled at these attacks? Do they not understand the simple logic? If you attack someone, you will naturally respond, and that's what ISIS has said. They responded to the bombing in Syria and Iraq." So basically, obviously, the text is saying,
what I have to say, it's not justified in any way. You have to start with that. Yeah. That's the basis that Islam does not justify killing of the civilians.
Look, can I just say, if the French, like how they did in Algeria and in other places, they literally set up rape camps, when they colonized Algeria.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean we can do the same, because we are guided by Islam. We have the Quran, we have the Sunnah, and we obey the rules in the Quran. And this is why all the masjids, all the imams, all the leaders, the whole of the Muslim community came out very clearly, and they said, look, this is not from Islam, and therefore it's not in our name, it's not in the name of our religion, it's not in the name of the Muslims. Despite the fact that ISIS came out and it explained, it clearly stated the reason why it did this, even then you find that the Western governments are saying no, it's not that, it's something to do with the religion, something to do with. So you can see that they're pushing an agenda. Like with all other things, you'll find that they always look for cause and effect. But in this case, this whole thinking about cause and effect seems to go out the window. There's no. Don't even mention foreign policy. Don't even mention foreign policy. And you can hear this. It's just a repeat. They keep saying this. Don't even mention foreign policy. That's not something to be mentioned. This can never, ever, ever be a cause because they just have a really admirable, great foreign policy where they,
I'm getting really some positive text. I'm just going to read them out. I don't know if you want to respond. We said, we have so much to offer our non-Muslim counterparts. We should really tap into and encourage with them, engage with them. Sorry, we've got a caller. Quickly, give me 1 sec. Sorry. Yes, hello, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Sister, you're listening to Middle Path Radio, Straight Talk. Do you have something to say? Question or maybe a comment?
Yes, brother. I'd like to make a comment, please.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. My name is Habiba. I'm calling from Romford.
Okay.
I would like to make a comment about what the brothers are discussing. I didn't hear much of the discussion, the earlier discussion, especially the bit about where Brother Reza Nadim he called.
Yeah.
But there's a few points that I'd like to make regarding this discussion.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. First of all, it's really sad to see some Muslims who come onto radio shows, not your one, not this particular discussion, but the morning shows,
yeah,
especially where all this vitriol is being churned out against Islam and against Islamic ideology. It's really sad to see Muslims who call in and use this word, we. that we condemn. You know, they're condemning the actions they're condemning the actions of a group which was set up to push an agenda. And it's very sad to see some Muslims who condemn this without having the correct ideological discussion.
Why do you think that is? I mean, why do you think they just come on and blatantly just say, look, we're sorry, for the attack? Obviously, they haven't done anything. But why do you think that is?
I think Muslims are fearful.
Yeah.
They are being made to feel embarrassed.
Yeah.
They're being made to feel humiliated. And it's lack of ideological vision. Muslims need to understand that the ideology right now that they need to blame is that of capitalism. It is capitalism and the West, especially Britain, which has led this war against Islam, which has propped up these tyrant rulers. It is America and Britain and the colonialist friends that destroyed the Khilafah that started the proxy wars in the Muslim world in the first place.
Yeah.
It is these countries that cause the economic subjugation of the Muslim lands. They support the enemies of Islam. They support the hypocrite and cowardly scholars of Islam. They support the deviant government-friendly organizations. It is these things that the Muslims need to understand.
Mm-hmm.
When they understand the ideological war against Islam, they'll be blaming capitalism. But they don't do enough of that. What they do is that they blame these proxy deviant groups who claim to be representing Islam, but like the brother actually mentioned,
you're talking about
there
Brother
isn't enough evidence to prove it.
Reza Nadim, yeah? Or are you talking to some of our brothers in the studio?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say, just to come in, sister.
I've got Brother Khairul who wants to come in. I've got Brother Khairul who wants to come in, maybe.
Yeah, just to
make a point.
Yeah, just to come in and support you. That throughout the years, if you look at from Sadat, from the Gaddafi or Saddam, they've been supporting all of these rulers throughout this period. Yeah, these are dictators that suppressed Islam and the Muslims. So the Muslims have been suppressed so much. They've got so much anger within them. It's just and then you can't talk about foreign policy. It's just amazing. It just doesn't make sense at all.
I think
of course, we're not allowed to talk about foreign policy because David Cameron has said that this is the politics of grievance.
Yeah.
We cannot accept everything that the government says. Yes, there is a political voice, and Muslims should use it while they have it. And I really believe that Muslims must stop saying. I've heard some ridiculous statements in the radio shows. I mean, where Muslims say that our government is going out, our government's foreign policy is this, our government's ideological, our government is fighting this. We must stop pretending that this government actually represents the Muslims. This government, and any Western government, any Muslim government, does not represent the thoughts and emotions of the Muslims at all.
But we are living. Sorry, I'm going to just. We are living in this country. Some of us feel we are British. Should we not refer to our government as our government?
We are Muslims. That is our identity. When there will be a government that will represent Islam and it will represent the thoughts and emotions of Muslims, that is a government that we will be proud of. The government that we live under right now, it has banned discussions in madrasas. It has brought a lot of heat on imams. It has attacked the Islamic dress. It has attacked the concept of segregation, the concept of brotherhood for Muslims who live abroad. It has caused the surveillance of our children. It now tells us what to teach our children in terms of ISIS. So this government does not represent the Muslims at all. And Muslims need to stop making these statements as if by living here and enjoying certain luxuries requires some kind of gratitude or some kind of elimination of our identity. This is the incorrect attitude that Muslims should have.
So what do you suggest? Sorry to cut in. What do you suggest that Muslims who ring in? Obviously, they we can't judge their intention, but they're most probably doing it for a good cause. They want to maybe have a voice for Islam. That's why they ring in, because you will for a lot of people it's very difficult to ring up and discuss some of those issues. What kind of advice that would you give them, before they go into these shows or when they ring up?
The advice I would give to Muslims is that you don't have to air your political voice always on the radio. Okay. There are many other avenues where Islam is being attacked.
Yep.
They can write up. They can make their voices known via social networking. You can talk to your neighbor. There are many avenues where you can get your voice across. However, the first thing to do is to become more politically aware. When we become more politically aware, we will realize and we will have to accept that this is not just a country against another country. This is an entire ideological war. Why do we not blame the ideology? Why do we not blame that? Why do we single it out? And why do we limit it to a few countries when we know that it's actually a war in Islam? Why don't we say it? Because we cannot come from the angle that freedom is something that's afforded to us when we live in Britain. Freedom is something which was afforded to us when we were born. We're born and we're free. We have a voice, and we must utilize it before it's actually taken. So my advice to Muslims would be, don't limit your thinking, broaden your political vision. Don't, alhamdulillah, it used to happen 10, 15 years ago, but now groups have come together. They actually agree on something. They agree that there is this narrative being churned out. They agree that there is a war. But we should broaden it and understand that it is an ideological war, and we can only have a correct response when we understand the ideology that we should protect. We should protect the ideology of Islam.
Jazakallah khair for your contribution. Inshallah, please do ring in. Next time we have a show every Friday, so you can ring in, inshallah, and voice your concerns, comments. Inshallah, Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum. Okay, so back to the studio. Brother, final message. I mean, we've got like about 4 minutes to go. So final message. I think the sister that just rang, she made some very good comments. What is your message to the Muslims who are interacting with the non-Muslims? I think we made the point that it's actually the non-Muslims that we need to maybe convince rather than the government, because the government has its agenda and and it will pursue that. So your message, can you make it sharp?
Well, I would say the sister made very, very good points. And the Muslims, we can't go to sleep. Reza made the same point, which is that, it is a duty on us to try and, counter the narrative. The government narrative is that this is caused by Islam and the Muslims. And the only reason they want to do that is because they want to curtail Islam. They're worried about Islam. So we need to go out and counter this narrative and give the Islamic viewpoint on this issue. And we shouldn't be fearful in that.
Okay, Abdul Samad, can you make it 1 minute, please? Yeah?
Sure. I think much of it is covered, really. I say to Muslims, stay strong and, be true to your faith and, In tansurullaha yansurukum wa yuthabbit aqdamakum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, strive in the path of Allah, support His deen, and Allah will make your foothold firm. And really, this is actually a winning battle for us, inshallah, because it doesn't matter. Whatever they do, Allah is on our side and He will aid us and He will guide us. We need to remain strong, and we shouldn't really, bend to the pressures that are coming from the authorities and the media. And we need to work hard, like Brother Reza said. We need to work hard. We need to talk to people. There are a lot of good people in this society who are completely against the establishment themselves, and these are the sort of people that we need to, work with, support, and really,
Thank you for that. It's been a very interesting discussion. Many thanks to our panelists and especially to our listeners. I hope you can join us next week for another discussion. We start at 8 o'clock, so please tune in, inshallah. If you can't join us, then you can follow the discussion on Twitter, which is hashtag at Middle Path Radio. Again, thank you for listening. This is Middle Path Radio. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Middle Path Radio, your #1 online Islamic talk station.